Good morning, good morning, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Wednesday to one and to all. Perhaps it is Thursday for some of you. I actually had planned to do a reaction to tonight's debate, but I needed to take a few more notes and go through my talking points before I actually did that. And as I prepare for the next series of adult conversations with Cinda and friends, and you'll see that on my video feed, we're going to be talking about back to school and mental health. So I'm excited about that. And in preparation for that, I've been putting a lot of things together. And as I mentioned, getting my feet wet, learning how to just get productions together. That being said, I've come across quite a few stories, quite a few stories. And this one right here. Hi there, R.A. Garcia. How are you? Thank you, beautiful. Truly appreciate it. You know what? Nightbot has a problem. I think it's because it's all caps. RA. So ignore Nightbot. I may have to, as I've mentioned before many times, fire Nightbot because he's messing up my streams. But anyway, this story right here is heartbreaking. And for you parents out there, I want you to pay close attention to some of the details. Now, keep in mind, you too, RA, you too and enjoy. Thank you for all of your support. Truly appreciate it. For you parents out there, women and men, you all have to be extremely, extremely careful. There are, in my opinion, monsters out there, and I would like to believe that everyone has a conscience, and I understand how at times one can feel desperate. Hey there, the Guardian, how are you? How one can feel desperate. But there has to be other options when you find yourself at the point of desperation, especially when it comes to your own children. Now, we've heard and seen many, many horrific stories, and thank you so much, The Guardian. Many heinous crimes that have taken place, and this one is no different. Now, even though this occurred back in 2009, I believe it's important to cover, and it may be something that I will use as a talking point during my next series, or maybe not. So, before I go any further, let me put up the viewer discretion disclaimer because this absolutely contains mature themes and situations intended for adults. Viewer discretion is advised, and this truly, truly, truly is a must. As a matter of fact, It's the sensitive content trigger warning. So, you parents out there, and school has just started for many. If you are squeamish, you may not want to engage in this broadcast. And then again, that's something that I believe parents in the community should know about. Your children are going to school. Some children, depending on the location and jurisdiction, some children may be walking to school and pass by people in the neighborhood that they've known for a while and trust. Unfortunately, these days and times, it's not how it used to be, and you have to be extremely careful with whom you trust. So, with that being said, and without further delay, this is the extremely disturbing and shocking story of Shania Davis. And I pray that I'm pronouncing her name correctly. Now, her mother, Antoinette, who you see on the right of the thumbnail, and little Shania, who was 5 at the time. I blurred her photo, even though if you Google, you'll see pictures of this beautiful, beautiful little girl. But for the purposes of this broadcast, I blurred her face out. Um, Again, her mother. We'll start there, Antoinette. Sold, sold her daughter, Shania, to pay off a $200 debt. I'll repeat that. Her mother, Antoinette, sold her daughter, little Shania, to cover a $200 debt. Now, this case is out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And as I mentioned, this happened back in 2009. And there are a lot of bizarre um, details involved, but the point I'm trying to make is be careful with number one, with whom you associate with. And when it comes to your children, the decisions you make clearly, clearly will have an impact. And unfortunately, the decision that Shania's mother, Antoinette, made resulted in Shania no longer being with us. Now, according to some reports, and this is where it gets fuzzy, it was said that money was given so that Shania and her mom would not be homeless. And then the story changed to it may have had something to do with, I'll just say, street pharmaceuticals. However, after investigations took place, they found that that story wasn't true. There was indeed a debt, and because Antoinette, Shania's mother, did not have the money to repay the debt, she offered her daughter to pay the debt. Now, before Antoinette decided to contact law enforcement, Shania was seen on camera at a nearby hotel. The man, who was later identified, and this is where, I mean, this is twisted anyway, but this is where it gets even more twisted. The man, identified later as Mario McNeil, happened to be, excuse me, the ex-boyfriend of Antoinette's sister. Thank you, Oracle TV. You were up early or late, but thank you. Thank you so much. As I mentioned, Mario McNeil was the man identified at a nearby hotel on a camera. It was then discovered that Mario McNeil was the ex-boyfriend of Antoinette's sister, Brenda. I'm sorry, Oracle. That's Nightbot. Nightbot is extremely ornery. So, according to reports, and this is, when I read it, I could not believe it. According to reports, Antoinette said he was only supposed to have relations with her. Let me repeat that. He, meaning a grown man, was only supposed to have relations with her. Keep in mind, Shania was only 5 years old at the time. But to say he was only supposed to have relations with her as if that was okay. If that wasn't bad enough, after she was reported missing, she was later found and no longer with us. The autopsy showed that she had been assaulted. And again, you can read this story. It's out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. Her mother, Antoinette, and this is unbelievable, was sentenced to 17 years. 17 years. I'll repeat that. Her mother was sentenced to only 17 years, while Mario McNeil, who was charged with these heinous crimes, was sentenced to be unalived. When he was convicted in 2013. Now, sadly, Mario McNeil, as report says, was using, I'll just say powder, and consuming alcohol. I'm not sure how much, but to me, to even think about committing the crimes that were, sometimes I believe these types of behaviors are just in some people. And it is hard for me to believe that there was no other recourse, none that came to mind to repay this debt than offering up your own seed. Again, this mother was pregnant during the time of arrest, which adds even another layer. And it makes you wonder, who are your neighbors? Who are the people that attend community events with you? You have trafficking involved in this case. You have many, many layers. Hi there, Kimboy. Thank you. You have many layers in this horrible, horrible case. But I'm highlighting it because it shows you that you must be cognizant with whom you allow around your children. I don't care how nice and kind they may present themselves to be, you just don't know. It would be a good idea to vet people. And keep in mind what I said earlier. Mario McNeil was the ex-boyfriend of her sister. And according to reports, knew how to get into their home, which happened to be, I believe, a double wide in North Carolina. Again, briefly and shortly, this to me is a story of a true monster. And it's sad because there are so many women who want to have children and cannot for various reasons. And you have women who are blessed to be able to have children. And because of life and circumstances, they choose. And we'll never understand, but they choose. They choose to subject their children to the unthinkable. And as I said, there are more notes I need to take as far as it relates to the debate that occurred last evening. But cases like this and individuals who find themselves struggling, that there should be programs available, readily available, so decisions made by mothers like Antoinette will never happen again. Little Shania Davis, again, who was 5 at the time, should be like other teenagers, but sadly, never had the chance. And as I mentioned, her mother, Antoinette, was sentenced to 17 years, and the ex-boyfriend of her sister, Brenda, Mario McNeil, was sentenced to be unalived. And this story can be found coming out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. And it's just one of many. It reminds me of the Relisha Rudd case, but the difference. Hey there, Oracles channel, how are you? The difference between this case and Relisha Rudd, who's been missing for years as well from the DC area. Relisha has yet to be found. Shania was, but unfortunately, as I mentioned, she's no longer here. So hug your children, love your children, be cognizant of who you allow around your children. These stories, these horrible, horrible stories need to be eradicated. And I know that is going to be nearly impossible, but these are some of the things that to me should be brought to the forefront to these politicians. Again, not just on a national level, but your locals as well, because many of those seats are waiting to be filled. That's my commentary on this very, very sad and disturbing story. Again, out of Fayetteville, North Carolina, case of then 5-year-old Shania Davis. And again, I pray that I'm pronouncing her name correctly, who was allegedly, per reports, sold to pay a $200 debt. We never know what others are experiencing and the challenges of life, but your seed, and again, this is just my opinion, your seed is something you should fight tooth and nail, or explore whatever resources that are available. Thank you to those that tuned in. Those who may catch the replay, feel free to leave your comments as to how you feel about the story. And as I mentioned, there are so many stories like this, but in preparing for the next topic, we'll be speaking about going back to school and protecting children and the dangers that some children may face. And this is something that I believe all parents should pay attention to. I know there's no textbook in parenting, so don't get me wrong in that, but sometimes sometimes when you listen to these stories and conversations, they may help give ideas anytime there may be a hiccup. And trust me, I've heard and seen um, people going crazy trying to do the right things and making the right decisions. So, again, thank you for tuning in. And I hope this opens the eyes to a lot of people that you really don't know what's going on in certain places until it's brought to your attention. Have a good night, good morning, or good afternoon. Until next video, bye bye for now.